Tim Santoni, welcome to the Santoni Spotlight. I'm joined by Bill Black. Thank you so much, Bill, for joining the show. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Before we get started, maybe tell the viewers a little bit about you, your practice, and just to get a general sense of what you do.
Sure. Well, 35 years ago, I started off in the life insurance business, and I started realizing that I was really interested in business strategies for business owners. And I got more and more into that field. And I started exit and retirement strategies in 2001 because I really wanted to help business owners who say, I know how I got into this business, I'm just not sure how I'm going to get out of it, and help them with all the strategies before they go to try to sell it. 1 out of 10 business owners that try to sell a business will sell a business. 9 out of 10 find it very difficult right now, and those numbers are going to increase. So I really wanted to help my business owner clients with that.
Awesome. So in that process, that exit strategy and coaching, give it maybe us a sense of, what are three common triggers or events that happen where like, oh, I probably need to reach out to someone like Bill because I'm over my head. What are those three kind of main things that could take place?
Well, there's one is something bad has happened. I get calls from people who have lost an owner. For instance, owner passed away or is unable to work, or a shareholder something bad might have happened, and hopefully we catch people on their plan so that if that happens, they're not in bad shape. But more frequently, it's just owners are tired and they're saying, I just want some of my life back. I've given 20, 30, 40 years to this business, and it's time for me to start stepping back a little bit. So more commonly, people say, I want to go from overtime president to part-time chief value builder of the company. That's what I call it, where they work on the value and building the fun stuff that they like to do, but they're not stuck in all the day-to-day operations.
Gotcha. And so when you get involved, obviously, in different events and different situations, obviously, you kind of got to build trust and kind of build a plan. What are some tools or some tricks that you implement that you can share that help to buid that rapport and trust and kind of start building that plan? Because this isn't kind of like a one-time meeting and be done kind of thing. I would assume it's kind of a process.
Yeah, a real exit plan starts, and I belong to a group that pioneered the development of an exit plan. An attorney who was used to working with other advisors said most advisors don't work well together. They'd be a good golfer, but not a good basketball team. And so how do we get them all to work together to create a playbook? So the playbook has facts about the business that all the business owners need to know, and then a clear set of goals that the owners stipulated. And there's 3 types of goals: timing, target, and treasure. The timing is when they want to go from overtime to part-time and maybe get out of the business. The target is who they think they want that business to transfer to. Maybe there's a plan A and a plan B there. And third is treasures. What do they need to get out of it financially? And so that's a very important page. And then we move into different types of strategies. And the strategies might be tax minimization strategies, they might be legal strategies, they might be operational strategies, or financial strategies. So all that goes into the queue here to build this plan, this roadmap, and then the advisors all get together and work from that document to fine-tune it and implement the strategies.
Gotcha. So, we have the pleasure of working together on a couple different things, and Bill's referred clients to our firm, so I kind of have a sense of how that all works. And I understand, when you're talking about, you probably have attorneys, CPAs, insurance people, and a variety of other trusted advisors that are influencing that client. How is it that you kind of quarterback that and kind of get all them working together?
Well, the situation usually starts with who else has talked to you about this type of planning? Who's brought it up? And the real truth is most advisors today are really busy doing what they do, and they don't have time to come out of that and become a quasi multidisciplined planner at that point. They're busy doing tax planning and information and tax returns. They're doing legal work, and usually lawyers get approached when there's a problem that needs to be dealt with. And most people tend not to go to a lawyer before that, and they know better. And then there's financial advisors, and they can be very good, but there's usually a product involved that they're trying to work with. And then there's other types of consultants that may or may not need to come in, but again, everybody's used to working kind of like a Mayo Clinic in their own disciplines, and there needs to be a general practitioner, or I call it an architect of the plan, so that if you were building a house, Tim, and all the contractors just showed up, it'd be a very inefficient process, right? But if there's a master plan and an architect, a blueprint of the whole plan, and a schedule of work, then they know when to show up to be most efficient in the process.
So that's a great example of kind of that quarterbacking process. Like you said, I think people are focused on what they're good at and but they're not looking at the best interest of an estate plan or different planning tactics. They're kind of staying in those disciplines. And I think that sometimes business owners assume that there's maybe they're adhering to a higher good. They've already thought these things out probably, and that they're trusting, oh, I've got a good attorney, I've got a good CPA. But they don't realize, they don't know what they don't know, right? Probably until you get involved. Which is obviously creates a stressful situation.
Yeah, a lot of owners think it's going to be like I sell my house. I put a listing out, somebody shows up and they buy it. It's not like that at all, because you have people, you have processes, you have financials, and you're basically in a beauty contest with a lot of other business owners. So most business brokers and M&A people that sell bigger businesses, they say that out of every 10 that come to them, only one usually gets selected. 9 go away and kind of it's not worth what they thought it was worth, or the business is in disarray and it won't be sold or transferred easily. So the big part of it, and it takes years up front, is getting the processes in place so they can easily be transferred to a new owner, getting the people dialed in and locked in sometimes so they'll stay with a new buyer, and if that happens, and working on the financials so that if you're in that beauty contest, you basically can put everything on the table and say, here's my business. It's all very, very organized, and you win that beauty contest.
Sure. When you say it's a process that can take years, give maybe the viewers a sense of what kind of a business owner's expectation in terms of timing in versus the reality of what you typically see in practice.
A lot of business owners, and I get calls all the time from people that say, I want to sell now. It's not going to happen. In most cases, it's not going to happen. I get calls from a lot of people that say, I've got a buyer who's talking to me. That's usually not going to happen, because they're not going to pay top dollar if they're calling them off the phone, on the phone. What most business owners need to start thinking about is, how do I create this business that will run without me and make myself less important? And to do that, I need to, again, build up processes, people, and have profitability baked in, and work on all of this so that if the buyer comes along, you can negotiate from a position of strength and not just take an offer because it comes along. And the other part of it is, if you don't want to sell to that person, don't sell to them. Don't change your culture. There's a lot to this. A lot of business owners need to help get financially set up so that the sale of the business isn't the primary thing that's going to sustain them in retirement. So there's just a lot of things to think about early on.
Sure. So if a business owner, has a business and they need that to sell that business for retirement purposes, and that's the sole asset they're counting on. What kind of how do you bring them back down to earth and say, okay, your business is doing $10 million after all these fees, taxes, whatever else? Like, how do you kind of go about breaking that down so they understand what that business is really worth and what it will be worth after the sale, and how much it will be, their quote unquote retirement asset?
Really good question. I call it know your value and grow your value. So the first is to understand and you don't have to get an expensive valuation. You can get an estimate to figure out what would it be worth now to a buyer. There are programs that we use to do that simply. And then you need to know a second value. That is, what does it need to be worth so that if I sell it and I pay taxes on that sale, I've got enough to sustain me for the rest of my life. And those two values usually don't match up. One's usually, the owner thinks it's here, but it's usually here. It's like half of what the owner thinks. That's the know your value, the current value. The future value then becomes their target, and that's what takes sometimes a few years, is to grow the value from level 1 to level 2, so that then it is ready and it will sell and sustain them. And then again, for a lot of people, it's making sure that if they can't sell the business, that they have a plan to sustain it through the next generation and take income from it. So for a lot of owners, it's changing their role. I call it know your goal and change your role. If you know your goal, what you need to grow it to, and you can change your role to chief value builder, and you're working on things that grow the value of your business. And there are 8 key value drivers we won't get into right now, but there's a program that helps people learn about all that. Then that becomes their new job, is to grow that value so that they can walk away from it and receive income, or sell it easily and get what they need out of it.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, I was going to bring this up, but the 8 key value drivers and working with Bill and understanding what he does, I would say that that helps not just from a exit strategy perspective, but also help the stakeholders, the shareholders, and understand what you're doing in your business to drive value from a sale position, not from a, oh, what makes me feel good or drive revenues. And by understanding that, it really changes the way you manage your business, the way what you focus on in terms of recurring revenue versus, you know, how saturated your accounts are, how much they make up of your revenue. And I think that that's a key thing that can have a value even if you're not even thinking about selling, but maybe you're doing some estate planning, you're doing some other things. And I think that that's a great tool that business owners should take advantage of, even if they're not even contemplating sale. But
you said that very well. There's a lot of times when I've gone to business owners that just are burned out. They're working so hard on their business, and their business has grown around them, and they're just working harder and harder. And I think I've given more 60-year-olds permission to play golf on Wednesday, because I say, take a day off and come back on Thursday and see what the messes are. That's your challenge moving ahead. If you can get that piled down to nothing, if you can get yourself disengaged from the day-to-day operations, so your business is running around you, a lot of business owners 6 months later are saying, thank you, I love my life now. You know, I don't want to sell now. Now I'm having fun again. I was just mired down in it because I couldn't see my way clear to getting out of that trap, the owner's trap, we call it.
So before we let you go, Bill, maybe give the viewers a sense of, you know, a business owner, they're involved in a business and a key partnership, stakeholder or owner dies, and maybe how that, in your view, has impacted the value of the business, the lifestyle, and the cash flow that business was generating. Maybe not a horror story, but an example of how that negatively impacts the value from a percentage or from a dollar, and over what period of time that stuff kind of transpires.
Well, I'll give you a quick, true but tragic story. A friend of mine was planning on doubling the size of his business and buying another business, and I saw him on Saturday night. I was out and about, and I saw him on Saturday night, and he was excited because he was going to go to the bank on Monday. I got a call Monday morning from his wife, and she said, he always said to call you if anything happened, and that's never good. And she said he was working out, and he had a heart attack and died, just like that, on Sunday night. And so we set out to figure out what did they have, what did they not have. Unfortunately, he was not a client, he was a friend of mine, and he had done very little planning. He did not have a living trust, so the widow had to go to probate just to get his name off of things. They had $1 million of life insurance and some buildings that they could sell, but the business was going to bring the most of that. So we discounted the value of the business immediately by 1/3. So he had just had it appraised. We said, we'll sell it for 2/3 to the key employee, but there was no arrangement put in place, and the key employee became disgruntled and said, I should get it for less because I helped build it. The key employee ended up not having good credit and couldn't buy the business, and actually became an enemy of the business. And this widow went through 14 months of torment before we could sell the business. And we had to bring in, get this, Tim, 21 professional advisors to help her in various stages of that. That was not inexpensive, but because a little bit of planning hadn't been done, 3 or 4 hours of planning and a few $1,000s would have allowed her to sell the business right away and not have to go through this. So I start all my engagements with telling people, we need to start with your business continuity. We need to know what the plan is there, because if anything happens like what happened to my friend and nobody expected that, then we're going to need to have that plan in place so that it's not her problem or your spouse's problem.
Gotcha. That's a great example. All right, well, before we let you go, we're going to put you on the hot seat, ask a couple personal questions and get some insight. So, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee, black?
Oh yeah, black.
Cats or
strong.
dogs?
Strong.
Strong?
Yeah.
Cats
dogs.
Or dogs? Dogs all the way. Best book you read in the last 12 months?
I just read a book that I really like called Profit First by Michalowicz. I hope I didn't mess that up too bad. Profit First is a book for business owners to teach them how they don't have to struggle through and wondering about what the financials are. There's a way to set up reserves along the way so that they can get a living wage out of their business and build in a profit. What was cool about it is his analogy was, it's kind of like when you have a full tube of toothpaste and you squeeze a glop onto your toothbrush and it falls in the sink, and you go, that's no problem, I have more toothpaste. That's one way of running a business. That's the way most people run a business. And when you have a rolled up, crinkled up tube of toothpaste and you just have to squeeze it just to get a smear on your toothbrush, you'll still brush your teeth, but you'll be very careful with that because you got to get the morning in too, right? You know, and that's the way most businesses should look at their cash flow. And what Profit First does is it removes all the profit money, the owner money, and the tax reserve money and puts those into other accounts so you can see what you can spend. Very powerful book.
Gotcha. All right, and favorite app?
Favorite app right now is there's an app I just found out about called Sweet Process, sweet like sweet tea, SWEET, process.com. It's an online app and that you can build processes out for your company. I just found out about it and I've talked to the owner of the app, and it's going to catch on like wildfire. It allows up to 8 people to go into your company, and you can add other people and build out their processes and systems online and create a living standard operating procedure manual.
Huh. Awesome. Well, Bill, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim.
I will leave all of Bill's information down below, and we'll link up favorite books and apps so you guys can connect, and we look forward to connecting in the comments. Thank you.